What up, Primus nerds? Let's make a Primus bass sound, shall we? I'm here in my studio. A lot of these plugins, this is my plugin chain here, a lot of these could theoretically go into the Helix as part of its processing chain. So this can be worked out within the Helix, but it's easier to have it splayed out like this. That way I can sort of go through each step in my thought process through setting up the tone. So let's listen to the tone by itself. And here's the DI before. Heavy. So I got to preface by saying I'm a drummer. I'm a drummer that's a mixer, and I love the bass guitar. It's my favorite instrument. So I'm trying, and Primus is my favorite band. Primus bass guitar is more like drums than it is like bass, and that's my personal opinion. I'm using drum logic to learn Primus songs, and I'm able to understand it better as a drummer than I think I would as a guitar player, because it's a lot of rudiments. It's a lot of stuff that if you're a drummer and you're doing rudiments and you're practicing, you're doing, a lot of his stuff is going to make a lot of sense to you. So I use drum logic. When mixing it, I'm mixing it like a drum. So let's mix this bass guitar like a drum. All of these I'm turning off right now are my post processing or my makeup. There's a pre and a post stage. So this Helix right here is my, I'm running it through the Obsidian 7000, which is a Dark Glass Omega emulation. And that's where my tone shaping has come from. It's by no means a majority of my tone, though. So everything I'm turning off before this is my DI processing or my pre-tone shaping, you know what I mean? So you can look at this in a pre and a post manner. This is the pre-processing is corrective, EQ and compression, and then my post-processing is the makeup I'm putting on the signal. So let's listen to it as if I just plugged in my bass guitar and I've got my DI. Okay, so the first thing I would do is throw on a compressor, because it stabilizes and actually adds punch to it. Now, what am I doing here with this compressor? This is traditionally a drum compressor because it's very fast attack and release times, and I want more punch to my slaps and my pops. Essentially, all I did was find around the 5 to 7, maybe 10 range to where my slaps and my pops are really tanking this compressor, and then it's able to recover. This needle's able to recover back to 0 because that's where you get maximum punch. This is a slow attack, so it's letting the transient through. And then it's the fastest release, so it's able to recover in time for the next pop or slap or whatever. So this is a very good drum compressor to add punch to drum shells, so that's what I'm doing with my bass DI. Next! All right, so I use chrome strings or flat wound strings. I love those. They're not as good as bright strings. They're dark. They're not as bright as bright strings. They're dark strings, these flat wounds. And this actually makes it easier for me to create a fabricated bright clank pick attack to it. I'm using distortion right here through Saturn. It's a multi-band saturation plugin. I'm using tape machine distortion on just the high end above 1.8 kilohertz. So let's listen to what this is doing. Absolutely amazing. So this is still in the DI. So I'm doing this just a little because I'm doing this in stages across the entire chain. So it sounds really good just jacked right now, but I'll put this about where it was. Just know that this is distorting the top end of the transient and adding brightness to my strings. Now, let's turn on the general tone shaping. This is my next in my chain. It's turning on this tone shaping plugin. I'm not doing much with it. Boosting the low end, cutting a little bit of 500 hertz, and then boosting a little bit of this 3K. I just know from experience, 3K is where I want my top end transient, my guitar to, you know, I know these frequency ranges in my own guitar, but 3K is real sweet on my bass guitar. So I'm boosting that up just a little bit, but it's general tone shaping. No distortion, no nothing. All I'm doing is bass, mids, high. Pop out of that. Now, I'm listening to this source, and I have these on. Now that I'm bringing up the volume, and I'm using, with this compressor, I'm densing up the source a little bit. I'm starting to hear stuff like resonant frequencies in this bass guitar. That is making it a little bit crispy in the wrong way. Too crispy. This is what I do next. I'd load up an EQ and I'd put it first in the chain. The distortion and the compression are actually what's bringing up these frequencies. So it makes sense to grab an EQ before with all the distortion compression on and start pulling down what you can that sounds crappy. Now this is from months ago. I loaded up an old session. This might be spot on, it might not be, but it's literally, it doesn't mean, just follow your ears, you know what I mean? I'll boost what I pulled out right now. This is the source by itself. I cut all of this. So now you can really start to hear these weird low mids. Don't like low mids. No, that's not really too bad, but whatever. And then this is the worst ones right here, like these. These ones. On a non-distorted tone or DI, like this really wouldn't make much of a difference. But when I'm distorting and compressing, I'm bringing up a lot of low-level noise, which is the low-level resonances of the string itself. So this becomes, the more I distort it and the more I compress it, which I'm a metalhead, I distort and down-tune all my problems until they start to make sense. So now it's a completely clean, let's turn this off and on. Sweet. Hearing it as it is now, I probably could ease up on all of it together. I probably went a little too heavy-handed. Sweet. Now, in my thought process, it's like I'm pulling down these resonant frequencies, and that might be affecting the high end in a big way because I'm distorting this top end of, you know what I mean? So I'm pulling this down, so now I want to compensate in a way. You know, coming out of this, let's just think about it, because now I'm to the point where I talked about, this is my corrective EQ, so I pulled out the resonance. I distorted the top end to make the strings crispier. I stabilized the audio source with compression, made the slaps and pops more punchy as a result, and then I generally tone shape. So now I'm at a spot now where it's like I just want to boost. So let's listen, and we'll go into my thought process, because then I would listen to it as part of the song. Here comes the copyright. So it still needs some volume boost because Les is dominant in these songs. He's the loudest thing. It's really fun to mix this up because of that. So I want it denser. I want it more distorted to be able to be clear atop these instruments. And we're not quite there yet. So basically what I did with the corrective, I'm now going to try to scale up and boost that without causing too much low-level stuff to start making that tone a mess again. So it's a constant teeter-totter, but what I would do first is just go all out, load up this Saturn, and do more compression in the form of saturation or distortion. So this is, I'd split it into 3 bands. I have tape machine distortion on the top and the mids, and then tube distortion on the low end. The tube distortion is less So you can kind of hear the flubbiness or the fartness of it. Like literally when you distort low end, that most dense or loudest area right there, it starts, you can kind of see it kind of fold back on itself. You're putting it up against the compressor and it's actually flattening out, and then those wavelengths start interacting with each other when it folds back on itself, and you're hearing that. That's essentially what you're hearing. So tube distortion does that a little bit cleaner than tape distortion. That's my tape distortion right there, so it's a clear, like, flub out, whereas if I jack the tube distortion up, we'll go about 50%. So I know right here I haven't distorted. I want to find the threshold where before it flubs out, but where it's still good. So I densed this up a good 50% with the tube stage, and that made the low end a lot denser, a lot cooler. I'm doing this at every level. So I did this with the tape machine, hit about 50%, and then just with the high end of the thing, I just even more. You hear that smooch? That sounds so good. Like, and I gotta roll back to I'm processing this like a drum. When you use tape distortion on a snare drum, for instance, and it's balanced correctly to where the actual tape machine is distorting that crispy top end, it makes this kind of smooch in the upper mids that just sounds amazing. And you can get that same smooch in the low end too, you know, with the low end part of the snare. Being able to combine those two is awesome. So literally it's a teeter-totter game. I want the top end of this bass. I want this snare drum to sound like a snare drum. I'm processing it like a snare drum. But I use tube distortion on my kicks to make them more dense. And I'm trying not to flub out the low end just like the kick drum. So I'm essentially just low end of the bass at this point, processing like a kick drum. Top end of the bass, I'm processing like a snare drum. So this is where it gets a little complicated, but this plugin really does make it easy. I hope I made sense. But let's go back here. That's where the smooch action starts. I don't want it to be out of control. Yeah, that's cool. I love that. That's like ear candy to me, so it may be annoying to some people, and I'm sure it is, but whatever. I'm trying to make it sound good. Just leave me alone. Right here, I can't really help you. This is a weird and pretty heavy-handed EQ, but I just have to say that like I would have all of these on where I'm at in this stage right now, and I wouldn't even say that this is even necessary. It's just I might be listening to the other drums, the vocals, the guitars and everything, and I'm trying to make it fit in a cool way. And this is really how I had to feel upon the day. I probably had my subs boosted here in the garage, and I was liking hearing so much low end out of it and actually adding subs. So we'll listen to that right now. Oh yeah, it's cleaning up a lot. It seems like I pulled a lot of high end out too, so that like really seems counterintuitive, but I know what my next stage is here, is I can always compensate on further stages. So let's just leave this how it is. Say that I just went crazy on this and I really like this. I actually would want more low mids though. Let's listen. Yeah, so we can just teeter-totter this whole thing. It looks complicated, but I'm just like, there's my low-mid band, and here's my high-mid band. Yeah, I love that swipe, and that sub-swipe is what I'm calling it. When I swipe across the strings like that, it creates that sub. So anyways, yeah, I love it. Let's go to this final stage, which I can compensate with this as well. So like I may have pulled the high end out with this EQ. I fixed it. I kind of just tamed it in general, but didn't really change much. But this C4 right here is multi-band compression. And essentially, I'm very simply just hitting all of these areas until the particular frequency area actually touches that. And then I can tone shape with this, because now I know I'm bringing up just a tightly, it's like putting a safety net over the top. So I'm not compressing this heavily. It's just keeping everything balanced and in the way I want. That way, if you start palm muting as an electric guitar player, you start palm muting, all of a sudden the low mids are going to get out of control. So if you have multi-band compression, then you can have just this area pulling down on those low mids and keeping it balanced. So that's what I'm doing. I'm wanting to just leave it how it is and throw it through this multi-band compressor, and I can tone shape from here. So let's listen. Yeah, so flatline 2 is my last stage of processing, and all I'm doing here is it's a clipper, and this is another stage of like processing a drum. It's like a kick drum or a snare drum. I put a clipper at the end of those shells. Clipping preserves the transient, and brick wall limiting sort of flattens that transient in a way that kind of takes away the punch of it. I want the slaps and the pops to be punchy. So this gives a top brick wall, like a brick wall limiter. It gives a top end to where this isn't going to poke out of the mix. I can pop as loud as I want, and it won't poke up out of the mix, because this clipper is giving a final, like, you're not getting higher than this. But so in volume, it won't get up higher than this, but it actually, if you clip it pretty good, it actually preserves the transient in a good way. So that's all I'm doing. There you go. If you can't see, this is your overall volume going up, and then this red right here is where the clipper's being engaged. So if you can listen or watch again. It's when I'm hitting the downbeat or the upbeat on a really prominent slap or pop. So I can listen to any and make sure that when I'm not slapping or popping, which is like right here. See? So the actual tone and everything, you definitely don't want to be clipping into that, because this is what this will sound like. Remember I was telling you about the fart when you clip low end, when you limit low end, compress anything, you actually fold it back on itself, and then you start hearing these weird conflicts. The low end is a very, very touchy and ruthless area when it comes to processing like this. So yeah, I hope so there you go. There's my Primus bass tone. I hope you learned something out of this. Let's listen to the final. Sounds good to me, man.